I am Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska in the Gallup offices in Singapore and in Malaysia. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on February 10th, 2015. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that is available for you. It's right below the main video window there at coaching.gallup.com/live. And if you have questions or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can contact us. Just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Or there's a contact page right there. If you look to the right of the video and look down, there is a contact form. Just fill that out and they'll get right to us. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com. for all your coaching resources and training needs. And you can also catch the video and now downloadable and streaming audio for, you can really listen to this anywhere. Planes, trains, or automobiles is what we say. Get that downloaded to your mobile device. Everything to get it downloaded is at the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. Sarv Atri is our host today. He works as a strengths evangelist in Singapore. And Sarv, it's great to see you. I always look forward to these Monday nights, Tuesday mornings where we get to hang out. Welcome back to another Call to Coach.
Thank you, Jim. And like I said, I love getting on these Call to Coaches. I think it's a great opportunity for us to hear from some of our coaches, how they are going ahead and evangelizing strengths around the world, and also going ahead and making a big difference there. Today, we actually have somebody from Malaysia join in, Joseph Tan. And Joseph, we've been in touch for a fair while now, and I love his passion for strengths. He's actually one of the first Gallup-Certified strengths coaches in Malaysia, and really making a big difference, working with right across the spectrum from young adults to corporates. Although I would say his sweet spot is working with leadership teams in corporates. He leads with connectedness, strategic belief, learner responsibility. He is a consulting director and owner and founder of Good Monday Consulting. And maybe we'll start with that, Joseph. First of all, welcome to Call to Coach, and thank you for joining in. And tell me more about why Good Monday Consulting. How did you choose that name? And we would love to hear your strength journey as well.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the call. I intentionally called the coaching and consulting practice, which I have, Good Monday Consulting, because Monday by default is the bleakest day of the week. People wake up on a Monday not wanting to go to work. So it is my mission to transform that mindset so that when you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day, you are raring to go, and Monday is really good. In fact, it could be your best day of the week.
Great, and although it's Tuesday for me, but I'm ready to go, and it's Monday for you, Jim. So I hope you're ready to go as well. So thank you for that, Joseph. And great. So tell us a little bit more about your strengths journey. How did you got into Strengths Finder?
Well, I got into the Strengths Finder because of the journey that my clients themselves are going through. Because clients that have been successful in the past realize that what got them here will not get them there, because largely they have been focused on training that has to do with technical skills, competency-based training, while ignoring the culture of engagement that needs to be in place in the organization, particularly with the younger generation, because you can always count on the loyalists and the engaged to help pull the company through to higher performance. But when people start to retire and you think about succession planning and talent management, elements of engagement begin to show up. So my journey into strengths basically began with growing pains from my clients. Clients coming to me and say that, Joseph, my people are properly trained and yet they are not loyal. Joseph, my people are competent, but yet they don't like their manager. Joseph, my people can do the job, but they are not happy. They are not engaged. So what is the missing link here? What is the next threshold, not only to higher performance, but performance that is sustainable and performance that is motivating? So that's where I got into the strengths journey, and as in most things, it all started with a book. And from the book, you go on wanting to meet those who are responsible to put the book together. And that's how I got in touch with Gallup.
Love that. No, we would love to hear, I believe you have a whole, series of stories about how, you've been working with clients and impacting them, especially where they're facing challenges in the organization around culture. So tell me a little bit more, a particular story or a series of stories where you've been able to create a difference in organization that you consult with around StrengthsFinder.
Sure. Saurav, one thing which I realized about strengths is that it really cuts across all culture. In fact, I just came back from Papua New Guinea, where I ran several sessions for their leadership team at the central bank in Papua New Guinea. And, and what I've come to realize is that across all organizational cultures, this one principle stays firm and stays true, is that all culture is built one conversation at a time. Let me give an example. In the course of the small group interaction that we had, one of the one of the deputy directors made a comment of someone else in the room saying that this particular person is too protective of his people. He is too protective of his people. Now, what the director was trying to say is that he shouldn't be too protective. But once I revealed to the group the strengths approach to developing someone, the aha moment came when the deputy director realized that being too protective is just a raw expression of someone who have the developer talent team. Because someone who have developer in their top 5 tend to be too protective. So our approach is not to erase the talent team from this individual, but to help him to move from version 1.0 to version 2.0. So how can I express my developer team in a more matured way that doesn't appear to be too protective, but I'm still looking out for the overall good of the organization? So that really sent a few light bulbs going in the organization, because it's not just only how we converse with each other, it's how we view each other. Sometimes we would mislabel people, we would strike them off as a misfit just because they have raw expressions of a natural talent team that is not developed. So this really fires me up as a coach, because people are getting judged and boxed up unnecessarily, and they are trying to be someone whom they are not, rather than more of who they already are.
I love you talked about raw and mature. Tell me a little bit more on that piece. How do you help people identify or let them claim that this is a raw state and this is what mature state looks like, and how do you help them through that journey?
Well, one of the key areas for someone to focus on in moving from raw to mature is never use your strengths assessment report as an excuse not to connect with people. That's very raw. Some would say, Joseph, since empathy is not in my dominant talent team, so I don't have to feel for people, And they would say, well, that would justify my hard and fast approach, my command and control response, and they use it as an excuse for behavior. Now, that's very wrong. And part of the mindset that we need to overcome in moving from raw to mature is that all of us are primarily designed to connect with another individual. And that's how you get collaboration and higher performance. And that moment of growth comes when everyone takes ownership of their strengths and say that, how am I going to connect with another individual in a way that it's comfortable with my strengths? My talent team might be different from the other person sitting next to me, but that's not going to stop me from connecting with him. I'm going to find my own flavor of connection. So when people have that determination to connect with their own unique flavor, then that's when you have maturity.
Beautiful. And what sort of techniques or activities or questions do you use to help people build awareness of some of the themes around, which helps them build relationships? How do you help them to build relationships?
Well, in in order to help them build relationships, the first factor is this is that although different people have different talents, and yet the commonality across all effective leaders is that there is a high level of self-awareness. So the first thing that I do is to help the individual understand themselves, to help them understand their soul, the way that they naturally think, feel, and do. Because particularly here in Asia, a lot of individuals tend to find themselves in their job roles. They tend
Sarv, are you hearing that too?
Yes, I think there's
Okay.
a slight
they are.
lag.
So the
We're just losing
first
him.
step
It's okay, Joseph, if you can hear me, hang tight 1 second. We're losing you. If you could drop out and come back in for me, that might be helpful. We'll see if we can get him back in. Starv, can you hear me? Am I okay?
Yeah, you're back. You're good.
Fine.
in a more specific
Yeah, it may take him a while for
Yeah.
him to catch up to
And I
us.
think
So
for people who are listening in, I think a really good way of learning about raw mature themes is a theme Thursdays that Kurt Leeswold hosts along with Jim Collison. We do it every Thursday. Again, available on our online Gallup Strength Center YouTube channel. So do log in, and I think it's a really powerful forum to learn more about each of the themes.
Yep.
Joseph, if you can hear me real quick, we're going to have you come back in for us. We just lost your bandwidth. That's okay. Sarv and I will keep talking.
I'm back online now.
Oh,
Okay, great.
Yeah, we don't see you yet, so I'm just
Okay.
let's see if we can bring you back in there.
Okay.
It happens from time to time. That's part of doing it's part of doing a live webcast. It's all right. It's one of those things.
Yeah,
that,
sure. Would you like me to drop off and come back in?
Yeah, drop it and
Yes.
come back in real quick. Let's try that real quick. While you're doing that, Sarv and I will keep talking, and we'll cover it. Perfect. Yeah, Sarv, one of the questions I get all the time from the coaches in our Facebook page is about group events, and you were starting to go that direction with Joseph, but why don't you talk a little bit? What have you seen? You work with coaches all the time. What have you seen that works really well in group kind of settings?
I would say I think that's a really good point, and I think one of the things that Joseph mentioned is communication is one thing that is lacking in teams that is devoid of having strong relationships. So just being that catalyst, and what I've seen really useful is having strengths as a language, start building communication. That is really powerful when you start looking at each other, what's right about them. Because in general tendency, while we grow up, we see things around us and we look at what's wrong around the world. And I think right now, in the whole world, we need a lot more of positive energy. There's a lot of negative things happening, and I think strengths is one language that infuses positivity in people. It helps to see what's right about each individual, and once you help people see that around you, that's when the conversation starts having in a positive trend, and that's what is the foundation of building relationships.
Joseph, I think you're back. Let's just let's make sure. Yep. Okay. And so you were talking a little bit about team. We missed all of that, and so Sarv had asked you about successful ways of working with teams. Talk a little bit about it from your perspective.
Okay. Well, the successful way in working with teams, this might sound a little bit paradoxical, is to begin with the individual, because everyone who steps into the office, they step into the office first as an individual, then only as an employee. So when there is a high level of self-awareness, two things happen. One is that people begin to be more confident in articulating their strengths. They become more courageous in stating what inspires them, what motivates them, what they love, what they hate. So that's the first step. The second step is that they start to realize that, hey, there are so many rich perspectives around me. There are so many other people that actually complement rather than compete with me. So moving from self-awareness to how the team actually complements each other, it is a simple but yet a powerful moment of realization that moves towards sustainable collaboration.
Great, thank you, Joseph. Now we would love to hear a particular story of a particular team that you can start by sharing what their business challenge was, or what their concerns or pitfalls were, and then how did you help them move on that journey, and what sort of insights and aha moments the people got out of it, and what did success look like for them?
Sure. I remember I was working with this executive leadership team where at the very start of the workshop, the CEO came to me and said that, Joseph, I am frustrated. No one in this team gives me what I want. Even when they do a presentation to me, the numbers are wrong, the fonts are not right, the syntax is inaccurate, the grammar is not correct, and they do not give me what I want. Joseph, can you just, can you just whip up this team and get them to toe the line? So this was basically a culture that was operating by the force of intimidation. And this is what I've been observing time and time again, Saurav, is that unless we have a language for engagement, the default culture is that it is driven by the force of personality. And towards the end of the workshop and the interaction, it was just so heartening to see two things happening. Number one is that the employees needed to see that they need to adjust their communication style to fit in with the strength profile of the CEO. Secondly, the CEO realized that not everyone is like him, and that he needs to adjust his listening style to those of his audience. I could remember the big eyeball look that he had during our facilitation session where he stopped me halfway and said, Joseph, are you trying to tell me now that I must send my people for training in the areas that they are good at? And I said, yes. He says, oh boy, I've just been sending people for training classes that they hate. I keep sending people to work on areas of their weaknesses. Then I could remember this gesture very well. He turned left to the human resource director and said, Mister, we've got a lot of work to do.
Love that, love that. And I think that beautiful statement made. I think right from childhood we've been growing up, telling us to focus on things that we're not good at. And rightly said, I think the best potential that we have is in the areas of natural talents and growing that space out.
Yeah,
so great,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that across on that. Also, what advice would you give to coaches, Joseph? You've been running a successful business in coaching. What advice would you give to coaches who are getting into coaching, to how to go about starting their own coaching businesses, and also maybe, how do they, have those initial conversations with clients on strengths?
We may have lost him. We may have lost him again.
Dropped him out. Okay.
Okay.
For everybody else who's logged in live, I would say that I think we have a couple of courses scheduled in Singapore. I can tell you the dates for that now. Well, we get Joseph back. So actually, we have a next course coming up in Singapore, the Accelerated Strengths Coaching course from the 20th till the 24th of April. A couple of other things that we are really looking forward to here in Singapore, Jim, is the HPM course. We are launching our inaugural HPM course in Singapore on the 17th and 18th of March. So that's something to look forward to. We already have, pretty much 90% of the class already filled up, which is fantastic. And actually, Joseph is also attending that one in March. So, we have just a couple of more slots available. You can, log into our website, q12.gallup.com. That is for the HPM course, and you'll see the high performance management course. It's oriented towards managers who want to really drive performance with their teams. And then the Accelerate course is for coaches who really want to incorporate the strength-based development philosophy and help, in teams, individuals, and managers help create more engaged workplaces by focusing on strengths.
Let's Saurav, let's go back to that question now that we have Joseph back again. We lost you again from the beginning there. Just a little bandwidth problem. That's okay. Keep going with, and Saurav, remind us what the question was.
Yes. So basically, what advice would you give to coaches? You've been running a successful coaching business. What advice would you give to coaches of how do they initiate conversations with clients, and how do they talk about strengths from the get-go?
Sure. The one main tip that I have is look for growing pains. Companies that appreciate strengths are companies that are growing, and they're having growing pains in terms of their culture. So one very good statistic to share with potential clients who would appreciate strengths is share with them the top 5 predictors why people leave organization. And this is straight from Gallup. So the top 5 predictors why people leave: number 1, my relationship with my immediate supervisor; number 2, wrong job fit; number 3, unfair job practices; number 4, pay and compensation; and number 5, not aligned to company's mission and purpose. So if you take a look at the top 2 reasons why people leave, because they don't have a great boss and they don't have a great job, this is adequately addressed by the strengths-based approach. Because when an individual have opportunity to do what they do best every day, they are 6 times more engaged. If this is not job fit, I don't know what is. And furthermore, I would also tell organizations, the one group of people that's going to make this work are your managers, because managers are key change agents in creating an engaged culture. So the 4 vital roles of the manager: being able to identify talent, set expectations, motivate, and develop. These are all strengths-based approach to building your culture. So when an organization realizes that when they grow, they need to address cultural pain points, that's when they are ready to listen and to engage with you. Do not focus just on technical and competency alone. That's very basic. That is what got you here. It will not get you there.
Great. And a lot of coaches actually ask this that, great, we've done coaching sessions, next what? I would love to hear, you've been connecting strengths with engagement and also the follow-through process. Share a little bit more about that. How do you help organizations, move on that journey of, translating strengths into performance?
Okay. Translating strengths into performance, you need to focus on 2 things. I call it the M and M's. The first M is the manager. You must have a follow-up and to let the organization know in a process to build your managers. Number 2 is that you need to find a way to keep the dog quiet. The second M is to muzzle your dog. Yeah.
That's hilarious. He might have an opportunity to get the dog here in just a second.
Now where was I?
Joseph, hey, we're losing you one more time on this. This might give you an opportunity to. Can you still hear us?
The dog got excited with strengths.
Yes, I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay. If you do lock up one more time, we may have to have you drop and come back.
So
it seems like you keep going though.
I think it's good.
So the first step, we must have a plan in place to develop the managers. So my second phase after coaching is to coach the managers, and I spend time in coaching them in the 4 vital behaviors. Identify talent, set expectations, motivate, and develop. Because if you cannot let me work with your managers, that means you're not serious about growing. So the second M that I would recommend is measurement, because what is not measured is not achieved. That's when I talk about the importance of taking regular pulse check on the state of engagement. That's where Q12 comes in. And the beauty of Q12 is that Q12 has a linkage back to managerial competencies. You can actually tell where your managers are in their role as a great manager through the Q12 tool. Most organizations does their employee engagement survey in a very going through the motion type of a procedure. You get a nice report and nice graph.
We're going to lose him again here.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, and Joseph, if you hear us saying this, just drop and come back in one more time. Honestly, one of the challenges to doing a global implementation of Call to Coach is getting the bandwidth to work all around the world. And oftentimes, I get the opportunity to work with folks in the UK and in Germany, they're in Singapore and Australia and India. I'm constantly surprised we make any of this work at any given time, right? We've created hundreds, I think we may be up to 100 now, of videos over the last 2 years, and I always get surprised. It's a great medium for communication, and so if you're watching the video or you're listening to the audio of this, we apologize for it, but we are doing some major miracles of just getting all this stuff to work and to get it work around the world. So we'll see if we can get Joseph back momentarily on his. He mentions Q12, and Sarv, we get what a lot of our coaches have started doing with Q12 is using it as because it's available, q12.gallup.com. Go on, take a look at that. A very inexpensive. It's $15, right? Is it $15 per seat?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's 15. And
15, yeah.
You can then you do the Q12, measure engagement before you start your strengths engagement. Then go 6 months to a year or whatever, and then remeasure that. And that's a very affordable. I mean, think about $30 if you do 2 in a year, $30 to measure the engagement. And it's not just to measure what you're doing from a strengths perspective, but you can then, it's great for the business to have that information as well, to see how they're doing, kind of set some benchmarks from engagement. And so it just gives coaches a tool. I recommend all the time. We get this question from coaches all the time. How do I justify this to my to the business? Measure it with the Q12 and build that necessarily with 2 Q12s and a strengths finder. You're in there like at about $45. So it's a fairly inexpensive way to get that measured. So Joseph, welcome back. Sorry we keep losing you on that. We just must be having some bandwidth issues there in the local area.
Yeah, that's quite all right. We are still engaged.
Yeah, we're making it work. Sarv's a pro at this. He just keeps going, and it just keeps working. So, hey, let's quickly, as we do this, Sarv, what else do you have to cover? Because it seems like this comes in waves. So let's get another question in before we lose you again.
I think one of the questions from my side, final question would be again, just looking at again towards the engagement piece and a follow-through process. How often do you do follow-through? What is your style of whether it's monthly, quarterly? How regularly are you communicating with the managers? And what recommendations would you have for the coaches as a follow-up to strengths coaching sessions or team sessions?
Could you run by that again? I kind of missed you.
Sure. So just as a follow-up, how often do you do follow-ups with your managers or your leaders? What is the frequency and, what's the time frame that you do?
Okay. Well, someone once said that it takes about 21 days to establish a habit. So when we talk about building great managers, you are actually talking about building great managerial habits. So basically, I take about 6 weeks off with the managers, and I see them in bite-sized coaching sessions where I would come back once a week, perhaps talk to them for about half an hour, but a lot more time is spent processing issues now. How did that conversation with the employee go? Do you realize that every employee have different ways that they love to be recognized? Did you set expectations clearly? So we go through the nuts and bolts of what it takes to build up great managerial habits, and of course, people would, they might fumble here and there, but it's all part of the process called learning. So typically, at the end of six weeks, you would have a group of managers that have gone through the school of hard knocks, but they become much better, and they start to realize that a lot of what goes on in high performance actually comes from me. My behavior, the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I act when I come to work have a very strong influence on my employees' performance. And typically it takes about 6 weeks to get that in place.
Great, thank you for sharing that. That was really good insight. Jim, do you have any questions from your side or from people dialed in live? I think
I actually I got to stop being a rookie and unmute my mic. One question from my side, Joseph. You mentioned working in Asia with this, and this is, we do call the coach here in the United States a couple times a month and talk to U.S. coaches. Do you, when you think about working there in the region that you work in, any unique cultural differences that you see in your coaching practice that might be different, or tips that might be different for folks in that region where maybe it wouldn't pertain to the United States or to Australia or to the UK, some of those kinds of things? Anything like that you can think of that that might be unique to what you're doing? You mentioned you think its strengths is the same everywhere, so maybe not, but any differences?
Well, I would say, Jim, that's a good question. In terms of the principles of the application of strengths, it is standard across all culture. However, the rate at which people warm up to it would be quite different. I would say that in Asia, there is the culture of expectations. People operate not just organizations, but people operate their families. Uh, People operate relationships by expectations that come from hierarchy. So it's very hierarchical in nature, you know, and and we and we would run teams according to the expectations of the one who is in the higher position, and that is very stifling. So we do need to spend a fair bit of time to warm people up, to give them more stories, to let them know that that command and control style may work in the previous setting, but it will not engage the younger folks or your next phase of growth that you want to be in. So, we do a lot more storytelling to warm the audience up.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good answer. Sarv, let me ask you this question. Do you think it's because it's harder initially in the beginning maybe to convince someone that operating in their areas of strength and minimizing your weakness is more difficult, so that might take longer? Do you think once that idea is accepted, it sticks and stays, or has a better propensity to be successful with an individual, where maybe here in the United States, someone will take it for a while and then I'll just move on to the next thing, kind of deal? In your work, you've worked around all parts of the area. Do you think that's mostly true, or am I just making it up?
I would say, I think, it all depends on how you approach it right from the get-go. The time you spend in building a relationship, building that rapport and trust right up front is very critical, because once you've established that, then the person starts to, absorb all the information. There's no shields up in, right? And then, because it's such a unique philosophy, I think it's also important that you present it correctly. You kind of position it correctly with the audience so that it kind of sinks in. And then, like Joseph mentioned, the follow-through process is so critical to make it alive. Like he said, it's a very hierarchical structure. It is true. And that's where targeting the senior management, getting them absorbed in is so critical for the whole organizations to follow suit. That is where I feel, I think this is slightly different here versus the US, is how you approach it and also how you kind of, trickle it down through the organizations and teams.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, one of the goals for me as we think about Call to Coach is how do we regionalize these in a way? There are some universal principles that take place, but I'm really excited about that regional bent to it that helps coaches in those particular regions, that where there may be slight cultural differences, where a coach needs to be aware of, those differences, and then be able to maximize them, right? I mean, I think there are some ways to go into a particular cultural setting, and if you understand it, you can take advantage of the cultural strengths that exist there that you may not be able to going into a U.S. group or going into a group in Australia or Singapore, India, or China. And so I like to ask that question that's out there, just because I think there's little tweaks that we can do. So, well, Joseph, thank you for putting up. You're getting very good at coming and going through this, and Sarv and I seem to be being able to manage it. Any final comments from you before we kind of wrap this up?
Well, when when we are talking about the cultural issues, I'd just like to give the other side of the coin, Jim, is that although here in Asia people might take more time to warm up to it, they are like an iron, you know. Once it warms up, it stays warm. So versus another culture that's more like a microwave, you know, it easily heats up, but it easily cools down. So so here, so we so it takes a lot more time in it's just
Jim,
like
I hope you can iron out these issues out later on. Yeah.
We'll be fine. It's like we get little microbursts of Joseph. I think it's a good opportunity. You know, what's been amazing is we've made this all work, even with the technical difficulties. And so, Sarv, you had mentioned there's some training coming up. I think high performance training is going to be available in Singapore. You've got some courses available in the spring for coaching as well.
That's correct. So we've got another high performance management course coming towards Q3. We should have one in June, 30th June and 1st July, and then more courses coming from the strengths coaching stable that we have. Again, right across. We actually have one coming in Hong Kong in March, 9th till 13th, and then one in Bangalore, 16th till 20th, and then more coming up in Singapore, like I said, 20th to 24th April. And then towards the end of the year in Delhi, Beijing, Sydney, right across the platform. You can go on our website, Gallup-Strengthscenter.com, and look at the open courses that we have.
Yeah, that's super easy. Head to Gallup-Strengthscenter.com. If you just search down, it'll say courses that are available for you, and those are everything we have is listed around the world is there as well. All our coaching resources, and if you're just a StrengthsFinder enthusiast, there's lots of stuff available for you inside that if you've taken StrengthsFinder. We had mentioned before, actually we didn't hear, we were talking in the pre-show about we have an iPhone and Android app that's available for you. And so if you've taken StrengthsFinder, you can log in with the email address that you took it with, and you can have it on your phone. I've been recommending that people take a screenshot of that and make it their lock screen, so you're never more than, millennials say that they check their phone 67 times a day. The average person does. So 67 times you'd see your strengths. If you want to remember those on a regular basis, that would be a great way to do it. Those apps are free if you want to just download them from the Play Store or from iTunes, and they would be available for you out there as well. We've also got meetups going on around the world. There's one, Alex Wong is doing one right there in Singapore, but we have them in Hong Kong as well as the Philippines. There in Asia, we've got a bunch of them. I think we have 17 now in the United States. Our goal is to get to 100 by the end of the year. So if you're listening to this and we're not doing a meetup in your city, let us know. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, and we'll try and figure out how we get one rolling. And meetups are really just people getting together and talking about their strengths. It's not that hard and not that difficult to do. Have it over tea, maybe a dinner, or just meet at someone's home. You could do that as well. That would be great. We also want to let you know we got lots of ways to download this and listen to it on your phone or a tablet or a computer or any of those kinds of things. Everything you need to know, and if you have trouble, you can always contact me. Coaching@gallup.com, and in those, if they are those kinds of questions, they will come to me. Joseph, we want to say thanks. Joseph, I muted you just because we were having some problems with your audio, and so just you can unmute yourself. But Joseph, thank you. Thank you for coming out. Sorry that we had some of the problems just getting things
That's quite all
over
right.
here. But you're available. You're on our coaches directory if folks want to get in touch with you. And so you've got a wealth of information, and certainly the conversation. You're also on our Facebook group, which I found out tonight. You're out there on the Facebook group. People can join us. And so if you have questions for Joseph, just go to the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/calledthecoach. And just invoke the name of Joseph Tan. He will then get a notification that somebody has asked a question. And Joseph, do you get out to Facebook much? Are you out there answering questions?
Yeah, Facebook, or you can go to the best website available on Monday. It's called goodmonday.com.
You should have that bookmarked and scripted to pop up on your screen every single Monday to make sure you're having a great Monday. Joseph, thanks for joining us here. We'll be back in Singapore in a month, so every second Tuesday of the month we're in Singapore, but we have all these programs available for you, coaching.gallup.com, and with that we want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.